Welcome to Bears on Tap, hosted by Quentin Q. Crisco, Sonny Verma, and the one and only Ron Luce. Bringing you all the news, analysis, and opinions on the charter franchise, Chicago Bears.
The Chicago Bears might lose, but Bears on Tap is still here. Hello, my name is Quentin Crisco. I am joined by co-host Ron Luce and recurring special guest who's joining us on these preview shows this year, Brendan Shagrew. Brendan, first off, just remind everyone where they can find your work. I just want to get that out there as soon as the podcast starts.
Of course. You can find me on Twitter/X/the Everything app at Brendan Shagrew. That's SUGRUE. And then make sure you check out my work at bearswire.com.
And while you're at it, browsing the web, make sure you go check out ontapsportsnet.com for all your Chicago sports needs. But let's get to the Chicago Bears. Gentlemen, I'll start this with Ron. After sleeping on it, putting a few days behind it, how are you feeling about the Bears right now, Ron?
I still hate them. They still make me miserable. But I think Bears fans are focusing on the wrong thing as the problem. I really think that's where we stand right now. I think there was some growth from Caleb. I don't know how much per se, depending on where you source your information or if you use your own two eyes. I think the variety of that differs. But nobody's really talking shit about the offense. It's the defense. The defense has given up way too many points. They can't generate pressure. Jalen Johnson is done for God knows how long. And there's still no Kyler Gordon. Tyreek Stevenson is about as good as my Stanley Cup at playing defense right now and guarding wide receivers. So, you know what, man? I tell myself I'm not going to let this team hurt me, but I'm fully prepared to be hurt come Sunday.
Brendan, where's your head at after a few days?
Well, I'm down, but I'm not out. And just overall disappointed. I think for me, I really try to check myself when it comes to the emotions, especially for an NFL season, because it's so overreactionary. It sways from week to week. From 1 week, you're the best team ever. You think, all right, everything's fixed. And the next week, you get beat by 30 plus points and give up a 50 burger in what should have been a revenge game. But look, the season is so flipping long. I know that this team eventually is going to figure something out. Now, whether it's sustainable, that's another question. But I just know this is not the final iteration of the Chicago Bears. But I'm still, so that's why I'm not out. I'm down. But I'm still disappointed because it just feels like there's a lack of effort. There's a lack of discipline. And of course, I think we all, we all see the meme, the fell for it again meme. When you look at what happened this offseason, when guys are playing harder, the practices mean more. Ben Johnson is kicking guys out of practice for not doing the details correctly. And then you go into a game and the effort's not there. The pre-snap penalties continue to be bad. So it's things like that. Like if there were breakdowns or just, I don't know, if you want to say bad plays or whatever, lack of execution. Yeah, that's one thing. But I just feel like the effort's not there. There's really no redeeming player on defense right now. I wholeheartedly agree with what Ron said, that everybody's focusing on Caleb and the offense, but really the defense is very worrisome because nobody's coming through that door to help, and you just lost your best defender. So what are you going to do now against a top 5 offense that's coming to town with a coach that himself is also looking for revenge? So it's not going to be forever, but right now it is pretty down.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, the return of the Flus, right? You guys think anyone's going to boo him?
Is anyone gonna boo him? Q, I think the real question we should be betting is what's the over-under on the decibels of said boos?
I don't know. I'm not a sound technician, but high, very high.
Definitely.
So yeah, I mean, I'm with you guys on most of that. Like the defense, I don't think is getting enough heat right now, and part of that is I kind of get it, because if you don't have the horses, you don't have the horses. So, like, you can only beat it so long before it's like, what are the fixes? Dennis Allen needs to figure something out. I have no idea what that is. It's just kind of, I'm sure if I got a defensive savant out here, they could give you some ideas. But at the end of the day, if you only have one rosterable corner starting, rosterable might be harsh, but like one guy who actually has NFL experience that is quality, which I saw the look on your face, Brennan. Quality's questionable for Tyreek Stevenson, but like, that's not much you're working with at this point when you're missing Kyler Gordon and Jalen Johnson, and something you thought was going to be a strength of this defense flipped into the biggest weakness. I mean, I don't know how you get past that. And like I said, there are ways. I watched the Raiders hold the Chargers to 20 points last night, right? Like, the Raiders defense does not have much talent outside of Max Crosby. So it can be done. I'm not that well versed on how. But with the offense that's getting talked about, I mean, it's mainly the stuff I've seen is Caleb plus minus, and that's every week we're going to see that, right? It's just that's the nature of the back position. I do think he showed. I just got done my offensive line tape review, and I put a timer on all of the passes. Like, in my video, I throw a timer from the moment it snapped until the ball's gone. He was much more on schedule this week, which was nice to see. A lot more under or at 3 seconds than in week one, when it was like almost nothing was within that. And not necessarily just designed like a bunch of screens or anything either. But I've seen the run game get criticized. And how do you guys feel about that after? I mean, the Bears averaged, I want to say, close to 5 yards a carry last week.
Here's the thing. I mean, people are, I think, looking at the run game when it gets out of hand in the second half. Like, the first half run game, even going back to week one, it wasn't awful. It wasn't great, but definitely improved in week two. When the Bears have a relatively close game and they're able to stay within the structure that they need to and have a good balance of run and pass, you can build off the play action, Ben Johnson keep defenses guessing, that's where things are relatively good. But the problem is, when defenses start allowing, a few touchdowns every 5 minutes and you start getting behind, then everybody knows that you have to pass, and you start having defensive linemen tee off. The run game isn't a threat anymore. So I do think the Bears would benefit from change of pace in terms of, bringing somebody in. I've been begging for Roschon Johnson. I know he's not great, but he's the most proven short yardage back that the Bears have. He did relatively well in last year in that role. And I think he could really help DeAndre Swift, because it just feels like at a certain point, teams know what to expect from him. I think he is running harder. I think you said it, he's getting criticized a little more than he should. He's still not good, but I mean, what are they going to do when the defense keeps allowing these big plays and they just make them totally one-dimensional? I think there's a number of different factors there.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it really stands to Brendan's point, right? Like, unfortunately, the horses in that backfield are limited, right? I mean, DeAndre Swift is a good player at what he does, but what he doesn't do is effectively run inside the tackles. Q, I finally got to catch up. I appreciate you and Sonny taking over for my what would have been a flu game for Ron Luce on Sunday night. And I was listening to you guys talk about it, and right, the lack of faith in a quarterback sneak on 3rd and 1, and then on 4th down again, because they don't trust DeAndre Swift to get that short yardage. Kyle Monangai is clearly not the answer, at least not at this point in his career. And to Brendan's point, right, you have Roschon, but to me, that just shows that, like, there's no faith in Roschon, or he's maybe just not fully healthy. So, unfortunately, unless somebody gets cut midseason, right, there's not a lot of great options out there, right? It's kind of like the defense. There's nobody coming through that door that's really necessarily going to be a huge improvement. When they can stay on schedule, I agree. I think the run game can be fine. I think DeAndre Swift can produce at a respectable clip, but it's very clear what he doesn't do well. And that's where the Bears are really struggling, because sometimes you just need that 1 or 2 yards to just keep the defense honest. And right now they're really struggling to get that because they don't have the personnel to take care of business in the backfield. It can't always all fall on your offensive line. It just can't. You need your running back to be a dude and make big plays when the time comes.
And if you want to hear some more about the offensive line, make sure to check out our offensive line show this week where me and Ron run through the tape, a lot of run concepts that we'll go through and kind of discuss what we're seeing. My initial watch, I felt pretty, I'm trying to think of the word, a lot better about the offensive line this week. The growth seemed to be, this is one way I put it. That last game, as awful as it was in every stinking way, was the first time in at least a year, probably longer, that I felt like the offensive line played as a unit, not as 5 individuals, which is very promising to me. They were making up for each other's misses. They were taking some calculated risks, knowing that one guy had to cover if it went wrong. Like there was a lot of stuff that got me very encouraged about the direction of the offensive line, which I feel good about for going into the rest of the season here. Outside of
that's
Braxton
a really
Jones, I'm scared of Braxton Jones because he. So I'll let you go. So I need to preface it with this too, or follow it up with this. Braxton Jones, he either re-aggravated an injury or got hurt somehow else about halfway through the game because he was looking better than week 1 until all of a sudden he looked like he didn't belong on the field. So I'm very worried about that. But back to you, Brendan.
And no, that's a good point, and it's something I wrote down too when I was doing my takeaways. That whatever it was, whether it was injury, whether it was just wearing down, he was a different player in the first half versus the second half. And I think you can also say the same thing happened in week 1 too. So, is it a conditioning thing? Is it teams are just figuring out how to beat him because he is still not 100%, even though I'm sure he'd tell you differently. But I was going to say, you bring up an excellent point about the cohesion and just the gelling of the offensive line overall. It's not perfect, but guys, remember weeks 1 through 3 and 4 last year, guys had no idea what the hell they were doing. I mean, guys were going one way. The center was doubling somebody who wasn't even there. And then all of a sudden there's a free gap where rushers are coming in. And it wasn't just poor execution. It was just poor understanding of what the play needed to be called. So that is positive for me that the scheme overall, I think, is working across the board. It's just, we keep saying it. They don't have the horses to keep up when things go bad. This is a team that has to play ahead, and it's going to be really hard to do that. But so that I love the fact that we are not talking about guys not knowing their assignments on the offensive line this early in the season, because that was one of my big worries. Even with veterans coming in, you have Drew Dahlman, Joe Tooney, Jonah Jackson. Those guys are veterans, but they haven't played with each other yet. They didn't know each other's tendencies. And then add that on to 2 young tackles. It could have been very disastrous. And so I just think that's an excellent point that you brought up.
Ron, anything you'd like to add on that before we get to the Cowboys?
Tune in tomorrow night.
Tune in for it. All right, guys. Let's take a look at this Dallas Cowboys roster. And before we get to our baddest and nicest man segments, any initial thoughts you want to throw out there about what the Cowboys are sporting here?
I mean, if we're talking the offensive line, continuing from our Bears talk, this Cowboys group's kind of interesting. I feel like the Cowboys have always notoriously had good offensive lines. I think this offensive line is interesting. It's a lot of new faces. It's a lot of guys. Obviously, there's some studs on that group, but I don't know, man. The Cowboys are just such a weird team to me, and I think that's where I'll just leave it off. Like, they're just a weird team to me.
Just don't you dare go and badmouth Texas Tech legend Terrence Steele. That's all I'm saying.
Defending your Red Raiders, Q.
Always.
There is an interesting name in here that maybe some people didn't see, but the center is different than normal with BB being out for multiple weeks. And now you have a new center that could present some opportunities, especially depending on snaps. Hoffman's not nearly as good. Guyton hasn't had a great year so far. So there's some opportunities there, and I'll get to it more when we're kind of breaking down our players and everything. But I really love this Cowboys receiver group. And I'm somebody who I like when there's appropriate guys for their roles, if that makes sense. So like CeeDee Lamb, true number one wide receiver. He's excellent, top 5 receiver in the league. George Pickens, high end 2. I know he's kind of a head case, but his role, his skill set just fits perfectly with what they can do. Then you have guys like Tolbert and Turpin being a speedster, he can, take the top off or be somebody underneath that can get a ton of yards after the catch. I just like teams that have guys that sort of fit their different roles, and you're not trying to, like the Dolphins, like Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, two the same players, and sometimes it gets a little rough. You don't have that different type of receiver. I think the Cowboys have a nice variety there, and it makes me sick.
Yeah, a variety that they're just figuring out how to combine right. I feel like last week 1, we saw very little George Pickens. Last week, this past Sunday, we saw quite a bit more George Pickens kind of sprinkled in there and getting more looks. So they're I think they're kind of hitting their stride with their weapons here. One note I want to mention: one of my good friends was a diehard Cowboys fan. Told me for 2 years before they drafted Cooper Beebe that they really like this Brock Hoffman guy. So I've never actually watched Brock Hoffman tape. In fact, I told him I don't believe that Brock Hoffman's a real person. And I'm still not fully convinced because I've never actually seen him on a football field. But he has played some NFL snaps, I believe. Cooper Beebe was the guy there, though. And if Hoffman was that good, I doubt they would have drafted Beebe. But let's go ahead and jump into our first segment here.
The baddest man.
All right, I'll kick it over to Brendan first. Who is your baddest man on the Dallas Cowboys this week?
I'm just going to continue the conversation with the receivers. I was going to go one of them, 2 of them, but I'm going to take the whole squad for exactly what I said. I think they complement one another well. You mentioned how they're still working to gel together, and we saw that come alive a little bit last week. CeeDee Lamb had a much, much better game with the same stats as he had in week 1, which is kind of crazy. George Pickens also came alive. I mean, just that deep threat, being able to, pick the ball out of the sky. I do think, man, this sucks because if Jalen Johnson was healthy, I'd feel somewhat comfortable about him going against CeeDee Lamb. I think Tyreek Stevenson's actually a decent matchup for somebody like George Pickens, but who knows how that's going to look now. And I'm worried about guys like, Kevontae Turpin too. We saw last week, the Bears just don't have much speed on their defense. And I'm worried that we're going to see something else like what Jameson Williams did, where he just blew past everybody with ease. I think Turpin is easily that guy. So I could definitely see some explosive plays coming there. I'm just going to put those 4 receivers as my baddest men because they're good in their own right. And now facing a depleted secondary, I'm scared. I need my baby blanket to help me out.
The baby blanket reference. I love it. Ron, where are you going for your baddest man? Oh, that's not what I wanted to do. There you
go. I want to give a quick little honorable mention, just piece of love. And maybe this is a little bit fantasy football driven because I have him in a few dynasty leagues right now, but I really like Javonte Williams. I love that he's kind of back. Because I think a lot of people forgot about him when he got hurt in Denver. So good for him and what he's done so far to start the year. Obviously it's only been 2 games, but cute. I apologize if I steal your thunder here.
Go for it.
But the highest paid guard in NFL history, Tyler Smith, is a bad dude. That's the guy that I look at right now when I look at this Cowboys offense and I go, man, for a team that's had struggles with a pass rush, ain't shit coming from that spot in the B gap or A gap to either side of him. So if you want to get creative, you're going to have to scheme up a Montez Sweat against somebody like Guyton or somebody like Hoffman to really get in there because I don't think anything's getting through Smith. And Q is your grade show here on the graphic. Steele and Booker are having good starts to the season, so that right side of the line is pretty strong as well. But man, he is just such a beautiful technician. Q, you would appreciate it. I saw some clips of his the other day. It's truly just a thing of beauty. Like that dude's just. There's not many really truly elite athletes, I think, on the offensive line that do what Tyler Smith does. There's not many O-linemen that can get beat inside and literally swivel their hips around and still get in front of an oncoming rusher. That's very, very few and far between. And somehow, some way, Tyler Smith does it on a fairly regular basis. It's a bad, bad man.
I agree with you, and frankly, Ron, I'm glad you went with Tyler Smith because I have a few ideas here of where I want to go, and it would be a shame if we didn't mention Tyler Smith. My first thought here, just to flip it to the defense for a second, is a guy that we know well, Kenny Clark. Been a pain in our asses for years, and he has a chance to be a pain in our ass again for another team now. Don't love that. I'm also considering throwing it to the neck. If the Bears lose this game, Jack Sanborn's making a play. And he's their starting will right now, I believe. Yeah, like Scott says, the Jack Sanborn revenge game. I mean, he's going to be on the field a lot, and we've seen his instincts. He's not a player who scares me per se, but just like the familiarity aspect. I feel like the way that he wins with his high football IQ and like being a very instinctual player, that knowledge is only going to help him more. And if the Bears lose this game, Jack Sanborn's making a play somewhere. Did you have something to add?
Nope. I'm just preparing myself for everything you just said. That's all.
And then, but ultimately, I can't go with anyone on the defense. This is a defense that just gave up 40 points to the Giants. Like nothing on there. I'm going like, that's terrifying. There's one guy who is pretty obvious here that is terrifying. And that's Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott is probably a top, 6 to 7 quarterback in the NFL. He's one of the only guys who you can fully trust in the NFL right now to just completely handle the offense in 2-minute situations. He's a guy who, as we saw this past week in overtime, they went down 3 points with 28 seconds left. He got them those 3 points to go to overtime. They got a kicker who can hit 60-yarders. That helps make that easier. But Dak is still a guy who you have full confidence to run the offense, whatever the offense is, when you need yards. And that against what the Bears defense will be, that's going to be tough to stop.
No argument there, Tim.
Yeah, I mean, Dak gets so much hate. And I know in the past, many Bears fans would say oh, if our quarterback was only as good as Dak Prescott, I'm like, are you kidding me? I would die for something like that. I mean, how consistent he is when he's healthy. Health is the biggest issue. And yeah, maybe he chokes in playoff games. This ain't a playoff game. This is a week 3 game. This is the spot where he shines in and reminds everybody, like you said, he could be a top 6, 7 quarterback. And again, I will say there's 2 things I look back on. One, he put up I think 49 points against the Bears in 2022. I know that was a long time ago, but we've seen it firsthand how bad it can be. At the same time, though, last year, week 2, didn't do so hot against Dennis Allen's Saints. So maybe, I don't know, maybe there's something there. Probably coping at this point just to hope that he just doesn't have a big game against this defense. But he gets so much hate. I still think he's going to go down as one of the more underrated quarterbacks of our generation.
Actually, I'm glad you brought that up, Brendan, because thinking back, because I like I said, one of my good friends is a Cowboys fan, so I tend to pay a little closer attention to them than I might some other teams. Dennis Allen has given the Cowboys trouble quite a bit in his past. I remember some very low scoring games between the two teams. Dak Prescott has 3 touchdowns and 4 interceptions in 4 games against the Saints. So that's an interesting aspect here that who knows if Dennis Allen can play the defenses that he wants to. I don't think he's going to be able to do a lot of man coverage. I'm not sure if he was able to against the Cowboys previously, but I mean, it's worth, he's had his number to a degree in the past. And interesting question here from Scott in the comments, not really on topic, but Would you rather have drafted Tyler Booker than Colston Loveland at this point? What do you guys think?
Maybe. I don't know. I don't really. I think like Jonah Jackson's fine. I know a lot of people hate the extension before quote unquote earning it, but I think they maybe weren't sure if Booker would be there, or maybe they just valued getting a guy that only has 3 targets in 2 weeks. I really don't know. I don't know. I feel like it's kind of an apples to oranges question, just because I know there was originally some like, oh, maybe the Bears take Booker, and then it kind of slipped away from that largely. I don't know. I think I'm okay with how things shook out. It would just be nice to see Colston Loveland get used a little bit.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I'm more so, I would have preferred, and I did prefer somebody like Josh Simmons or Michael Williams. And this isn't revisionist history. I was very happy with what Josh Simmons could have provided. I thought if he stays healthy, he was the most pro-ready tackle. The health was the biggest concern. So I wouldn't, because the Bears invested in guard already, I wasn't like, well, they could get another one with Tyler Booker and be pretty good there. I would have rather them take a tackle or Michael Williams, who had a pretty good game last week. But look, it's 2 games. And I think Ben Johnson is making it clear that the rookies have to earn their place. He has already said he wants to give the tight ends more runs. So let's just see what happens at the end of the season. I'm not panicking over Colston Loveland or Luther Burden. I think there's other things with the draft class that we can talk about, but that's another conversation.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, if we're talking Josh Simmons or Josh Connerly, or even like a Derek Harmon on the other side of the line, I could buy it more. But like, I'm sure Scott remembers during draft season my rants about how I don't think Tyler Booker's a first round caliber talent. So I think my opinion here is that's all I got to say. But let's get over to the Bears, and starting with Ron this time. Who is your baddest man on the Bears for this week?
Yeah. Do I have to pick one?
Got to.
Oh gosh. You know, I'm gonna go a little. I really think this is the week that Darnell Wright shows up and shows out. I think he's had a really good start to the year. I know we always talk about it on the O-line show, how unconventional his technique style is sometimes, and yet he gets away with it because he's the size of a literal brown bear. But that dude is just so good. And I think the lack of appreciation there, that's a bad man. And again, maybe there's a little bit of O-line bias, I'll admit. But I really think this is the type of game where, you think about that defense. Like, yeah, there's a lot on the inside of the line to be concerned about with Kenny Clark. But, if they're able to keep Caleb clean again and the defense can make a couple of plays, it could result in a win, especially if Dennis Allen truly does have Dak's number.
Brendan, where are you going?
Before I give my answer, I just wish Darnell Wright would quit the penalties. We would have such a different conversation about him if he could just limit the amount of penalties that this guy has. He's a fine player, and I would love to see this be a game where you look back and you don't say his name at all. And then you think like, oh wow, he allowed like 1 pressure, no sacks. Great. That would be fantastic. Look, I'm going to take the easy one. Big fan of his, been a big fan of his. And last week really showed what he can be. It's Rome Odunze. He is becoming he's a bad man. I'm going to do that every week now because I just think of Michael Irvin every time we say that. But so I interviewed Rome Odunze for Bears Wire over the summer, and I asked him specifically, I'm like, what is the most underrated part of your game that you think you have that people aren't talking about? He didn't hesitate, and he said, my route running. He's like, I think my route running is so much better than what I'm getting credit for. And you saw that last week. The different routes that he's running, the double moves he's putting on defenders, the sideline catches. I mean, some of the drops in the second half need to be cleaned up, but he had a career game last week, 7 catches, 128 yards. He's already matched his rookie total of touchdowns in 2 games with 3. He's the leading target getter. He is becoming that true wide receiver 1, and he's showing he can do it all. And against this defense, against what this defense did with Malik Neighbors and Wan'Dale Robinson, of all people, I feel really, really good about what Rome can do and just the chemistry that's building with Caleb. I mean, I already thought he was a pretty bad man, but he's becoming a very bad man and one of the, rising receivers in this league, I think.
So, I mean, I love that pick here, and I'm going to stick on the offense here with you guys. And I like Scott's comment here in the comments that Montez Sweat needs to be the baddest man for the Bears swing, because he probably does. I don't know that I have full faith in that at this point. Like, he hasn't shown me enough for me to make that my pick. For my pick, I'm going into the psyche of Ben Johnson. I'm going into the comments that he made the other day. The pointed comments about competition, about the players who are not playing with the same effort when the ball isn't in their hands as when it's in their hands. So to me, that's a wide receiver or a running back. So that's where I'm focusing. I could go Roschon Johnson here. I'm not saying tight end, because I think I think Cole Kmet's blocked his ass off to start the year. So I don't think that's a comment on him. And I just don't think it's a comment on Loveland, who, I mean, I haven't noticed any slacking on his end, and I don't think there would be. Roschon Johnson is in consideration for me because I could see him having a multi-touchdown game if he's getting run. But that's still risky because I just don't know how much run he's going to get. I'm going to the rookie. I'm going to Luther Burden III. Last week in our post game, we were talking about baddest man. It was like, is there one? But then it was like, I could talk about Luther Burden here. He looked good on kickoffs. And it was like, the guy's itching to get the football in his hands. The guy is just dying to get out on that field. And after those comments this week, I have to believe they're going to scheme some stuff up for him. So I'm going with Luther Burden III for my baddest man this week.
I like it. I like it a lot.
All right, now let's get to this next segment here.
The nicest man.
Who doesn't love puppies? Brendan, who's your nicest man on the Cowboys this week?
This might be a cop-out, but I'm going with old Flus, Matt Eberflus. What a nice man. He's a good man. He likes honeybees. He's got a nice beard. He looks like Santa Claus. He also can't coach a defense to save his life. Cowboys defense is piss poor right now. Obviously, we know they traded their best edge rusher, and yeah, they got better in some areas with Kenny Clark, but they are just it's neck and neck with the Bears and the Cowboys for one of the worst defenses in the league. I think this was a Total Fantasy that was sharing just the different coverage layouts. The Cowboys have not run a single play in man coverage. They're running all zone. And I mean, when you think about soft, when you think about nice, I mean, it can't get much softer and nicer than that. And I love the opportunity that Ben Johnson could be licking his lips, just picking apart that zone. And to you, Q, what you said about Luther Burden, why not have him, run some slants, sit in that soft zone and, get the ball, get some yards after the catch. I think it's a great opportunity for him. Their corners suck. You can attack the middle of the field at ease because they're playing that too high safety. The Giants did it last week with no problems at all. And I just have no faith that Matt Eberflus, we saw it here for almost 3 years. There's really not much redeeming qualities with this. I question his ability to generate pressure, to have exotic schemes. And when it comes to Ben Johnson being able to get the most of him, I really think we're in for a treat with that matchup.
Now, counter to that, does Ben Johnson or does Matt Eberflus have any intel that would worry you about the way the Bears offense might work or what makes their players tick? No, Ron?
No. Genuinely no.
Genuinely, no. I just truly don't believe he would. I can probably count on one hand the amount of times I said, "Oh, that was a really good like scheme or stunt that Matt Eberflus called." The Vikings game in 2023 stands out, and then everything else, I'm like, it's very vanilla. It's very baseline, and I just can't. I can't see him, even if he were Q. I just don't think they also have the horses to keep up either. I mean, Trevon Diggs is one of the most overrated corners at this point. If he's not getting interceptions, he's worse than Tyreek Stevenson at this point. They have very little pass rush, still running for the most part. I just don't think so.
Add into that the fact that, they're without Ron Bland for a while. That's a big injury in the secondary as well. And I think to that point, he might know what makes Caleb tick, but in order to make Caleb tick, you need to be able to get to the quarterback. And this offensive line for the Bears, aside from an injured left tackle, is far different and far improved from anything that Eberflus saw as the head coach of the Chicago Bears. So I think, yeah, sure, go ahead and try to make Caleb tick by doing something this or something that, but you got to get to him first in order for that to happen. And if he plays on schedule, like he showed he did it against the Lions, who knows what happens, right? Maybe all of a sudden Ben Johnson just gets the best of Flus when it's all said and done.
Now, another counter, and I'm not asking this because I believe it, but I'm asking because I do think it's a valid question. Matt Eberflus always kind of gave the Lions some trouble. Do we think there's anything to that? Do we think that's a Jared Goff thing? Where do we sit on that topic?
I think that's a Jared Goff thing.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, they weren't necessarily bad. I mean,
No,
they
weren't.
they gave up. They just gave up leads usually. I mean, I can count on one. I said that before. I think there's one game you could say, yeah, the defense legitimately rattled Goff and the Lions offense, and it was in the elements in December in 2023. Both games in 2022 were laughers when it came to the offense getting the job done. And then the first one in 2024, it was still like the Lions built a pretty good lead. They just got complacent.
Okay. I like that logic. So I agree with that logic. Like that all makes sense to me. They let off the gas a little because they're like, we're playing one of the worst teams in the league. We're gonna give our guys some breaks here to recover, and like this kind of a semi off week for our guys to an extent, which I believe does happen in the NFL. Like you read enough about it. When good teams are playing some of the worst teams, they do tend to kind of not quite go as intense on game plan, and they're like, okay, we're giving our guys a bit of a break. So I think the Bears might have been on the receiving end of that for the Lions once or twice there, which wouldn't be the case this week. Now, let's see. Wait, did you guys both do nicest man already? Okay,
no,
Ron.
Ron's gonna go.
I can't remember Ron's. What was Ron's? Okay, Ron, who's your nicest man this week?
Oh, man. My nicest man is a guy who maybe I have a little bit of a personal vendetta with. He wasn't so nice to me, but he's going to be nice to our Chicago Bears because he's not going to do a whole lot. That's Miles Sanders. The bane of my fantasy existence could be the creme de la creme that the Bears defense needs. Maybe it's good for a fumble. Maybe it's good for a really bad missed block in the pass protection. I don't know what it is, but I think he's a nice enough guy that he knows the Bears need to get right. And the amount of pain he's inflicted to Eagles and Panthers fans and fantasy football owners over his years, I think he's due to make up for that on Sunday against the old Chicago Bears.
All right, I like that pick. I hope he's gets enough run that he can make a mistake. Let's put it that way.
Crossing my fingers and my toes, Q.
But for me, I'm gonna go on the defense. I'm gonna go Kyer Elam. I just don't think this guy is a very good corner. I think if he's on the field, you need to be working mismatches towards his direction, trying to attack it. Trevon Diggs can get the football in his hands at the least. I do agree with what you said, Brendan, that he is overrated as a down-to-down corner. The guy's a history of taking the football away, which does worry me some. So, we've seen it in the past with teams against the Bears. Like when the Bears were running out there, what was it like? Jalen Johnson, Eddie Jackson, and 3 other guys who really didn't belong there. Did they ever throw it towards Jalen Johnson or Eddie Jackson? No. They threw it towards the 3 other guys. So you got to go attack Kyrie Elam, Reddy Stewart, a guy Bears fans might recognize from training camps past. Also a guy you can attack there. But, I mean, to me, Elam is a guy who has been burnt over and over in this league, so you need to try to make that happen again.
It's good to see that Plouffe brings in some of his guys.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect any less. But
that's why he's such a nice guy.
Yeah.
A nice guy.
Backs Brendan's point even further.
I don't doubt Flu's is nicest at all. Now, let's get to our final segment here.
Keys to victory.
And as I'm saying that, I realize we didn't do our nicest men for the Bears. So let's get through that real quick. Brendan, where are you going for your nicest man on the Bears?
Do I take the easy answer?
Okay.
I take the easy answer. Tyree Stevenson. My goodness. It's disappointing. What else needs to be said? Some stats are going out there that he's allowed 158.3 passer rating. PFR has him at 153.3, whatever. That's still really bad. When he's the guy that you're asking to guard the top wide receiver on a team, you're in trouble. He keeps getting worse and worse. He's had a 13.6 average depth of target already this year. That is 4 yards higher than what he had his rookie year total. So it's just scary that is the best you have to offer. And the rest, like everybody behind him, just can't measure up, which is the worst part. So we don't need to get into it. We see what Tyreek Stevenson is. We know what Tyreek Stevenson is. I don't know how nice he is because I think he's kind of a pest to other guys. He kind of likes to talk and chirp. But in terms of football, very nice man.
Ron, where are you going with yours?
I'm going to take the other low-hanging fruit, and it's going to be Deshaun Wright. These Bears cornerbacks are more closely related to a block of Swiss cheese than they are to monsters of the Midway. And it's been hard. Dennis Allen's defenses of old. We talked about it on, again, probably one of my favorite episodes we've ever done from a film review standpoint. That one was so much fun. They generate pressure with less because they had the horses on the back end in New Orleans. They've always had strong secondaries. Maybe not the creme de la creme of secondaries, but strong secondaries. And right now, the state of the Bears secondary is not strong. I think Byard's been fine. I think Brisker's been fine. We know what Kyler Gordon can be, but the loss of Jalen Johnson and Brendan's nicest man puts us into a bit of a bind. And Wright has largely been unproven. Made a great play against Minnesota. It was awesome to see him take that pick back to the house against J.J. McCarthy. But, man, Williams and Amon-Ra ate like kings on Sunday. And I don't necessarily see that changing because you have 2 great horses on the other side in George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah. I mean, I could stick in the secondary, honestly, because I thought Kevin Byard had a rough day this past Sunday himself. But I'm going to flip it over to the O-line where left tackle, after watching the second half of Detroit, I thoroughly believe the offensive staff is having a conversation about whether Theo Bennett should play this game at left tackle, which worries me in itself. But Braxton, if whichever one is out there, I'm concerned. I'm not trying to hate on Braxton. I'm probably one of the bigger Braxton defenders out there without being outwardly positive about him, but I think he gets too much hate at the same time. I think the guy is battling through an injury right now that is really impacting his play, and that injury, it has the chance to derail an offense. It was really rough down the stretch last week.
Look, guys, I got the solution. We treat this like a bullpen and just Braxton Jones, you play the first half. You've been good in the first half. You can hold up. And then as soon as you start to show that little sense, we're going to take you out, put in the Canadian Eagle to close things out in the second half. I think it's not the worst idea because, as the game wears down, we talked about it earlier, there's definitely concerns there. And at some point, I think the coaching staff is going to start just trying new things to see what works. Because if this continues, the Bears will they can't have an offense where the left side is such a liability and Joe Thuney has to cover so much ground to fix it.
Yeah, no. And I mean, the Canadian Eagle is a great closer nickname. So maybe that is what we see.
There you go. Yes.
But let's get to our keys to victory here before we close this thing out, guys. Starting with Ron, what's a key to victory for you in this game?
Man, we've talked about the pitfalls of this Dallas defense. And if there's ever one thing I could remember about Flus's defenses here in Chicago, is that you could gash up the middle for the run over and over and over again. And I know we know that DeAndre Swift's not necessarily the best between the tackles runner that exists. Maybe there is a little bit of a flair from a Roshan Johnson this week. But I think they have to pound the rock right from the start. I think Ben Johnson's offense gets better when the play action is there. And, we've seen what happens when you have an elite arm like Caleb's and guys are getting open like Roma Dunze did and had a career day on Sunday. Good things happen. This offense gets even better when the play action game is working and the other team actually has to respect it. I want 3-4 carries in a row to start the game. That's the level of establish the run early that I'm talking here. You got to get it in their mind that you are going to run the football. That way, everything else in Ben Johnson's playbook opens up. And I bet you right now, if they can establish the run and Braxton Jones is still playing a full game on Sunday, that play action game is going to help him a lot. Might also help those tight ends a lot too if they're going to get worked into the game plan as well.
Brendan, where are you going with yours?
All right, I got 2. Can I do 2?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So the first one, limit the explosive plays on defense. This is a team that is mentally weak. Once momentum just gets sucked away, whether it's a big 40-yard big gain, a run, things start to go downhill. The offense can't recover, and it feels like everybody just starts to turtle. We saw it in week 1, we saw it in week 2, and it's clearly a carryover from what has happened the last few years. I think if you limit those explosive plays, and we know the Cowboys can certainly do them, you're going to give yourself not only a chance to obviously win the game, but you're going to stay mentally in it. And until this team shows me that they are mentally tough, that's what I need to see, which is sad. Just make sure you stay with it because things can fall apart quickly with these players, unfortunately. And second, we mentioned him a little bit. Brandon Aubrey is a weapon. And I am very curious to see how he kicks at Soldier Field. We know it's notoriously one of the hardest stadiums to kick in. He has not kicked in Soldier Field yet. He very well could set the record for the longest kick at Soldier Field. That was 59 yards. That was hit twice. I believe Matt Prater was the last one to do it. So I don't want him to get comfortable. I don't want him to know sort of what's coming. Don't try to limit the amount of field goal kicks because with a game like this, probably could be a shootout. Guarantee you it's coming down to a last minute field goal. You want it to be the Bears, but if it does have to be the Cowboys, you pray that this guy just does not have the experience in a wind tunnel like Soldier Field and things start to go haywire. So just don't let him get comfortable. Don't let him have those chances to kick multiple field goals because I think it will be the deciding point in this game.
Can I double down on that point with a little bit of information? Currently,
Yes.
The forecast for Sunday is chance of rain at a very high percentage right now. You want to factor in terrible footing because Soldier Field's notorious for that too. It's a very interesting point to keep an eye on for Sunday. I think that's a great call out, Brendan.
Every time in my betting life that I have decided I'm going to hammer a Bears over, it ends up raining significantly. And this was one of those games, and I should have known.
Did you already do it?
No, not yet. But I was excited for that. I was like, a Bear, how seeing a Bears over at Soldier Field is like finding a leprechaun. It doesn't happen.
You're right. It really doesn't.
The last one that really stands out to me was like what Field's first year with Flues when he was just going nuts. Like they had a handful of those, but like,
maybe that Denver collapse.
Oh yeah, that one had to go over.
It's a good one.
I was probably on the under
because that was, I think, what was that? A 50? No, more than that. Probably a 63-point game.
Yeah.
That was probably the last one I can think of off the top of my head, Q.
Yeah. But they're not that frequent, so like I was excited for it. But back to the keys to the game. For me, I'm gonna go with gritty execution in the trenches. The execution in the trenches was a lot better this past week. But you know what? Darnell Wright whiffed a block on a QB sneak. Then they went to Braxton's side, and they didn't hit that well enough. I need to see more want to in those short yard situations. I need to see more consistent execution on the O line when it comes to the raw force element of the game. They executed a lot cleaner this past week from a chemistry standpoint, from a understanding each other's spacing, how each other work. But I still want to see them bring a bit more bully aspect to it. And specifically on the O line, I'm talking Jonah Jackson and Darnell Wright. Those two guys can move anyone in the league when they want to, but they need to execute it. And they're both tend to be pretty sloppy with their technique, especially as run blockers. I need them to clean up that technique some and really drive open running holes because I know they're capable. Like they can pry open any hole they want in the NFL. Now on the D line, that's primarily a run lane issue I'm talking about. I need them to tighten up run lanes. Again, I know they have the power bodies at edge. I know they have the muscle mass defensive tackle to do it. Dennis Allen is going to have to blitz his pressure, I'm sure, which I hate to do against Dak Prescott, but like the defensive tackle's jobs first and foremost to me needs to be clogging up those run lanes because even with Brock Hoffman at center, Cowboys O-line has a lot of mass on it and they can gash you.
Huge reason why Javonte Williams is having partially a bounce back year this year thus far. I mean, they have looked incredibly effective in the run game, and I feel like that's a thing that the Cowboys are notorious for, almost year in and year out, is always having an offensive line that can really move the football on the ground.
Yeah, I mentioned earlier that I wasn't that high on their draft pick Tyler Booker in the draft. When I saw he went to the Cowboys, I was like, oh yeah, he's going to be good there. Because like with Tyler Smith and Cooper Beebe and like Tyler Guyton might not be good yet, but like the guy is a monster sized human being who can move people. So I was just like, you got 4 big old dudes there who can play a power game with the best of them. So the D-line trenches will be important for them to be on their run keys and be able to hold their ground.
I have 2 questions on that real quick. One, I'm curious what you guys think. Is Andrew Billings kind of washed at this point? And 2, do we see Shamar Turner this week after seeing how Grady Jarrett was struggling with his knee injury?
You mean the human embodiment of biting kneecaps, Shamar Turner?
Yes.
His Texas A&M tape is just like, this dude wants to fight everybody. But like when you look at his scouting profiles from like I was saying this in a group chat we're in earlier, like Shamar Turner was the most divisive player from a like insider scout standpoint who actually talk to NFL scouts and get a feel for these guys, like how they're doing in meetings, medicals, all that stuff, versus like online scouts who just grind the tape and have to like really just take the tape for its face value because they don't get any intel on these guys, where the film grinders were a lot lower on him than the insiders, because the insiders heard from the scouts that this guy has the stuff that you just want on your team. So I don't think he's very good at football, frankly, but he just, for lack of a better term, he's just a motherfucker. Like, I mean, he's going to hurt you.
Well, and that's my question. I totally agree. I was not enamored with the pick. And then I see just how much he's, just getting in people's faces and doing that. And I'm kind of like, you know what? Maybe this team needs that type of fight, that type of bite, because it sure as hell isn't coming from anywhere else. So why not just let the crazy guy loose and see what can happen? So yeah, I think I wasn't very high on his tape either. He's kind of a tweener. He didn't seem to make much of an impact. He was a good finisher. But yeah, at this point, I'm like, get somebody in there to show some fight and to, I don't know, throw some hands.
And I think Billings is a great thing to mention. I mean, I was watching their week 1 tape, maybe Friday, and like, does he look bigger to you guys?
He's bigger.
He's definitely bigger than, because I was like,
I
looks
think
like he's
is.
added a significant amount of mass, which might be a Dennis Allen thing, but I don't think he has the same burst.
Mm-mm.
No.
And I think that's really what the difference is. I think he is it's always been weird the Bears got him so cheap, right? I think he is a very specific player for a specific scheme in how he excels. And if he needs to add mass, he probably loses a bit of that what makes him special in that scheme. And frankly, I mean, the torn pec that he had last year is a tough thing to recover from too. But ultimately, I didn't feel like I was seeing the same burst out of him. And I think there's more two gapping in this scheme, which is more reading as opposed to just attacking the gap that you're assigned to. So like, I think some of that factors in as well. His shorter arms, he's not a natural two gapper, despite the size.
Yeah, I don't have much else to add. I think you answered that beautifully.
Yeah, but predictions, guys. Starting with Brendan, where do you see this going?
I've waffled quite a bit.
You
I think
like
I'm
me
in the
and pick him to win every week.
Yeah, right. Look, at this point with this iteration, I mentioned it at the start. This team is going to go on some sort of a run. I don't know when that will be. I don't know how long it will be, but I have to see it first. And I'm worried about this Cowboys offense, and I'm worried that this is not the team that you want to get in a shootout with. They're the more veteran team in terms of quarterback, in terms of skill position players. I think coaching is kind of a wash at this point. I will say Cowboys 35, Bears 34.
Ron?
The epitome of a shootout. I'll tell you what, gentlemen, I revisited the weather report while we were sitting here, and now it is suggesting PM showers. Well, PM showers to me means anytime in the afternoon. This is a late game. We get a weird 3:00 game for the Bears and the Cowboys. I think it's going to rain. I think we're ready mentally for it to be the under in that sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
The weather sucks, and
I think it's a 50.5 total right now.
I think for that reason, it's going to be a shootout. I think Brendan's onto something here. That being said, though, I think the Bears get an absolute monstrous win because I'm going to be just blindly optimistic because that's just how I'm choosing to. I don't know. Like the Bears don't have a rivalry with the Cowboys, but like I just don't like the Cowboys. It's kind of like the whole New York Yankees of baseball, Los Angeles Lakers of basketball thing. Like if you don't like the team, you probably hate the team. And it's just because they are who they are. And that's kind of how I feel about the Cowboys. I think we're going to see multiple missed PATs, though. So I'm going to kind of get on a similar train to Brendan here, but not quite the same. I'm going to say Bears 26, Cowboys 22.
Okay, 26-22. So that's the under. All right. Big under, guys.
We'll backdoor under too, because
yeah.
I think in a world it could be 24-28. You're starting to push that over a little bit there, but maybe a couple misses really turns the game. I kind of hope I'm wrong. I hope Brendan's right. Truthfully, I would love to see like a 35-34 type shootout. I guess we'll just have to see how the weather plays out. But it is Chicago. We know that's going to probably change 3 times between now and Sunday. So
I'm just going to assume that the rain's not going to be a factor because that's never burned me in the past. So I'm going to go. I mean, so my gut here says that the Bears take a lead late in the fourth quarter and Dak Prescott breaks our hearts. But as I've said many times on this show and written many times in my articles, life's too short for me to pick the Bears to lose. Where's the fun in that? Give me Bears 35, Cowboys 32.
I love that.
All right.
Yeah. All right.
I will say, I'm really glad, Ron, you reminded me, because I know it's a 325 game. We do not see that many 325 games at
No.
Soldier Field.
And we're going to see 2 of them. I know the one is in Vegas, I believe, technically next week when it's the Raiders. But still, when's the last time the Bears played in back-to-back late slots? I can't remember the last time.
No, I mean, I want to say maybe, God, what year was it? The last time they went to Arizona, they might have.
That was last
I
year.
feel like it was, or maybe the time before that. Then
No, you're right. That was it. That was it.
Was it last
year?
That was
it.
100%. Washington and then Arizona.
Yeah. So I just remember being frustrated by it, and then they lost both in like terrible fashion, and it was just like, I'm on the East Coast, so it's like it's 8 p.m. and I'm pissed.
Yeah,
great.
8 p.m. and
you wasted your whole day waiting for that, and you're like, what the hell? I remember that. I remember that Arizona game. I played golf with my buddies, and I was like, this is a great day to start the day. And we watched the Bears game. I was so much like less mad than I would have been, because I was like, well, at least I got a good day out of it. Like
100%.
If you're waiting the whole time, that sucks.
Yeah. Well, gentlemen, go ahead, Ron.
No, I was just going to say really quick. I think, too, even to just build on that point, like when's the last time we saw the Bears in 3 non-noon slots out of 4 weeks to start the season? Right? The Lions game is the only noon game that they're going to play before their bye week. I think that's kind of crazy, too. That just feels unprecedented for Chicago Bears.
I remember, and this is where, Ron, I think you and I share the same brain, because I remember this stuff like crazy. 2018 was weird. Sunday night game, Monday night game. Week 3 was Arizona 325, and then week 4, I think that was the Tampa game noon. So I think that was a weird one.
I think you're right. That is weird. See, but that's what makes it fun. No, that's fun. I'm just saying the scheduling is weird, because I feel like I don't know about you guys. To me, I associate Bears football with like high noon kickoffs. Historically, in my
that's
life.
all I want. I don't like it when we're not noon on Sunday, because I'm like, now I got to like rearrange my whole plan for the day. Like I'm a creature of habit, and that don't fit.
Doesn't fit the agenda.
Real quick, 30-second story. Last year, my wife and I set up my wife set up like a photo shoot for us, because she wanted Christmas cards that year. I'm like, okay, cool, fine. We did it at the end of October. We had it scheduled for like 4:30 or 5, like golden hour. And sure enough, the NFL moved the Commanders-Bears kickoff from noon to 3:25. And I'm looking at her and I'm like, what the hell? And she's like, we're not moving this. This is planned. I'm like, okay, big game here, when we thought the Bears were good. So I swear to God, I had it on the radio. I had my phone playing while we're doing pictures at like the park, like 30 minutes away. I think I only missed 1 quarter, like collectively. It was impressive. I raced back and I got ready to see my heart get ripped out. And I was like, I should have stayed at the park. This is bullshit. But
the park was more beautiful.
Yeah,
it was.
The heartbreaking stories we could tell about watching Chicago Bears football. I'm sure it's a very long list, and that one sounds brutal. But gentlemen, on that note, why don't we get out of here the only way we know how, with a good old-fashioned bear down. We'll close this thing out.
Bear down, baby.
Bear down.
Bear down.